The 7 Elements of Palacea, Chapter 5. History for the elves begins with a migration. This occurred about 500 years ago. The elves and the other races crossed East Ridge into Palacea. This crossing was unimaginably dangerous, and only a few survived. The migration occurred as a grand exodus from the horrors of the 100 Years' War. Details of the war and the migration are sketchy, since it was the desire of the settlers to begin anew. According to our ancestors, this history was not worth remembering, and therefore it has been lost. The elves settled into the southern lands of Palacea. Brigid sipped tea from a wooden cup as he stoked the fire with a metal rod. He continued, "Magic has been the lifeblood of our kind since the beginning of time itself. Without magic, we are weak. Our intimate bond with nature is nourished by our understanding of the natural arts. Through magic, we speak to the land, and through magic, she speaks to us. The land is a living being, just as you or I. If one sets fire to a forest, the earth feels pain. A charred black scar remains. Return, however, after a rainy season, and the land would have already begun to heal. Sprouts of vegetation will push through the blackened earth to reform Earth's skin. A few seasons more, and the forest will have reclaimed its turf. Were I to place this hot iron on your arm," Brigid held forth the red-hot stoker iron, "your skin would burn, but you would heal just as Mother Earth. Is this magic, or is this just nature's way? I would say there really is no difference." "But only some elves know magic. Why is that?" Gladen soaked in Brigid's wisdom, thirsty for more. "Honestly, I don't know. Nobody knows why some elves are born with a gift and others are not. Obviously, you were born with a gift, and that is what matters." Brigid wiped dust off of a lower shelf, peered at a curious rock on the shelf, repositioned it, and resumed speaking. "Magic is nature's enzyme. Nothing can oppose the laws of nature, and magic is no exception. Magic is simply a nudge in the right direction." "Can magic bring back the dead?" Gladen was thinking about the mysterious dwarf. "No, what is done is done." "But magic can kill." This was not a question but a statement of fact. Gladen did not understand the good of magic if it was only able to take life and not give it back. Brigid seemed to understand. With a slight nod, he replied, Yes, it is true. Perhaps I should explain it this way. A river flows readily down a mountain. No earthly being must tell where the water must go. It simply goes. Magic cannot send the water back up the mountain. Only the rains can deliver heaven's tears. But water can be directed in the downhill direction. Have you seen the fields of man? This was a reference to the human farms between Glen Eden and Andalusia. Yes. Do you know why the fields are most abundant near the Brooklyn River? For irrigation. Gladen was not sure where this line of questioning was leading. That is correct. The waters of the Brooklyn River have been redirected into the fields through irrigation canals and ditches. And to what end? Better crops? Exactly. The waters of the Brooklyn were not denied nature's path. The natural laws remain intact. The flow of water was simply encouraged to enter the fields with a little help from an external source. The water that would have otherwise dumped into the Southern Sea is now an elixir of life. More water, taller corn. The fields are invigorated by a resource that was simply nudged in the right direction. Such is magic. I saw blue flashes of light the night of the attack. That wasn't natural. It was natural. It was heaven's lightning, inspired to strike down the enemy. But there was no storm. The stars shone brightly in clear skies, as I recall. Gladen was known for her keen observation and fail-safe memory. Storm or no storm? Clouds or no clouds? Heaven's spark is there, waiting for a call to strike. This call may be made by the earth, by the clouds, or by magic. Lightning has become one of the elves' strongest weapons against the Dark Horde. It is also one of the most difficult spells to control. Very dangerous when attempted by the inexperienced. I don't recommend it. Brigid tilted his wooden cup steeply, savoring the last drop of tea. Come, let's check on our injured guests. He stood and entered the common area. Gladen was deep in thought. Her teacher had not yet explained the significance of the dwarf's totem, and she had so many questions about magic. What is magic? Why can some make magic and not others? When would she get a chance to practice real spells? Would she learn how to draw lightning from clear skies? Brigid and his apprentice tended to their guests and prepared a simple meal of soup and bread. Gladen was eager to return to the discussion of magic, and even more eager to discuss the mysterious totem. Several visitors stopped by to check on the injured. The visits were appreciated, but Brigid was becoming slightly annoyed by the sheer number of calls at his door. He recruited a boy elf to stand guard at the door, informing all further visitors to return in a few hours in order to allow the injured to rest. Brigid called Gladen back into his study after the noon meal was served. Gladen was having difficulty choosing from a multitude of questions spinning through her mind. How does an elf make magic? Brigid seemed to understand Gladen's vague inquiry. How do your lungs know to fill with air? Brigid continued without pause. The natural laws know your intentions before you yourself know. Technically speaking, we do not create magic. We simply allow it to happen. Brigid pointed to a wind chime in a window. A sudden breeze caught the dangling metal shapes and stirred them into a pleasant harmony. You try. Brigid smiled. Try what? Gladen was slightly confused. Brigid again pointed his finger toward the wind chime, and again the dancing metal pieces chimed. I don't know how, Gladen stated flatly, conceding before an attempt. The wind knows and the chime knows. That is all that matters. Brigid's smile was widening. Gladen felt inadequate and frustrated. But you haven't showed me how. Yes, I did. The chime repeated its chorus tauntingly, now a third time. Gladen pointed at the window and nothing happened. See, I knew nothing would happen. Her frustration forced the words out of her mouth. That is why it did not happen. Brigid's smile dissipated slightly as he rolled his eyes. Try again, and this time, know that it will happen. Gladen had no clue what this meant, and was prepared to protest, but a rise of Brigid's eyebrows stopped her. Fine, I will try. She searched deeply in her mind for a clue. She sifted through random thoughts. This is ridiculous. He wants me to control the wind, but how? He hasn't taught me. Brigid's head tilted slightly in anticipation. Her thoughts skipped and spun. She remembered the beetle, the one she had made change color. How did I do that? It just happened. It was going to happen anyway. Did I really do anything? Her thoughts focused on the chimes, the wind, and the air. She felt the air entering her lungs, and then a nearly imperceptible waft against her cheek. Her ears sharpened to a whiff over the table, and then it happened. Her thoughts pulled the air from outside the window, and it obeyed. Her concentration was so deep that she didn't realize that she had closed her eyes. When she opened them, the metal pieces were skipping and dancing to a melodious jingle. Brigid was smiling deeply and proudly. The smile spread through his eyes and relaxed his posture. Gladen blushed as Brigid poured 2 cups of tea. I suppose you were interested in knowing more about the totem. Brigid changed the subject more quickly than Gladen would have liked. Yes, replied Gladen eagerly. But what is a totem? A totem is a representation of something else. In this case, it is an object that serves as a marker for a real being. A name tag? Gladen retorted with obvious disappointment. Not exactly, replied her teacher. A totem is an object of true power. Yes, it is a signpost, but it leads to a path of grave importance and responsibility. So, what does it say? What's the dwarf's name? Gladen inquired eagerly. I don't think you understand, my young apprentice. The totem and its engraving do not represent the fallen dwarf. This totem represents you.